Hello, everyone, and welcome to International Coaches Club, the podcast where international coaches share their stories and how they've made an impact on their sport in the US, from college programs to professional and national teams. I'm your host, Liran Zamir. He represented BYU men's volleyball team as a player, and today he represents the same program as a coach. His impressive playing career as a middle blocker includes professional teams in the US and Brazil. His coaching career started at Georgetown University in DC. From there, he coached a Division II school in Missouri. By 2018, he was named a coach at St. Mary's College in California, and 2 years later, before moving to BYU, he coached at the University of California, Berkeley. An incredible coach with rich experience coaching and playing in the United States, and a top candidate to lead a major Division I program in the coming years. Otavio Souza is my guest today. Hello, Otavio, and thank you very much for being on my podcast.
Hi, Liran. Thank you so much. You're very kind with your intro.
Of course. What stood out the most from that introduction?
Man, it's funny because like you mentioned the places I've been to, and for me, not one thing in specific, but as you mentioned the places I've been to, there's a little history, right? And their places are not very close by. Like I was in DC for some time, and then in Missouri, which is a totally different reality, and then in California for a big chunk of time. So as you named those places, a little film went through my mind, thinking of everything that I went through as I was going to those places to coach.
Fantastic. Yeah, I have something similar. We did the Americana, right? I started in California, then deep South Alabama, now in DC area. So I totally get that, and that we have like a nice picture and experiences from all those
Right. Yeah.
different places. Yeah. So you're from Florianopolis, Brazil. Brazil is well known to be soccer, football, but also not a lot of people know. I think it's a major, huge volleyball country. And then you grew up in Brazil. What got you into volleyball in the first place?
Yeah. So Florianopolis is an awesome place to be raised. So for people who don't know, it's an island right by the coast in southern Brazil, connected by bridges. And back then, my dad and my brother used to play tennis, and they were really good, especially my brother. And tennis wasn't really my sport. I was just tagging along. And at the time, we had Guga, and Guga was a great tennis player in the early 2000s, and he was from Florianopolis. So everything was about tennis, tennis, tennis. So I was a young kid, 13, 14 years old, playing tennis. However, we had a professional volleyball team in Florianopolis where Bruno got to play and Giovanni and a lot of Olympians got to play for that team. They were national champions. I was a contender. So on the weekends, I used to go watch them play. So I used to play tennis competitively. And then I also enjoyed watching volleyball, just for fun. So at some point, tennis became too expensive. The team was going in a different direction. It wasn't my sport. I was pretty decent at it, but it was not my sport. And then I gave volleyball a shot, with the youth team of that professional team. They had the pro guys, youth, junior, and then the pros. So I gave it a shot at the age of 15, 16. I was not very good at it, but with my tennis background, I felt like I was able to progress at a faster pace than the other kids. And I was a tall kid. I'm 6'7". Back then I was, I don't know, 16 years old. I was 6'3", 6'4". So the coaches gave me a shot. So that's basically how I got introduced to volleyball. And like I told you, at home, we used to watch a bunch of tennis. My mom loved volleyball. So I was always exposed to it at a certain level. But then once I stopped playing tennis, then I started with volleyball, and that was back in 2003, so 22 years ago. And since then, I've been heavily, deeply involved with this sport.
Incredible. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know tennis is a like hand-eye coordination sport, so it helps to start and then go to the sport.
Right.
Another sport you can develop very fast. So you started playing in the youth team of that professional team in Florianopolis, and then
Mhm.
when did you realize that you want to move out of Brazil and playing collegiately in the US?
Yeah, like I told you, I felt like I progressed pretty fast for a kid of my age and no experience at the age of 15, 16. So 2 years later, I found myself at the age of 17 or 18 playing against Olympians and professional guys. We had a really good junior team 1 year, and they signed us up to play a small professional tournament where it was a state tournament basically with a bunch of professional teams from our state. And then at some point, I saw Bruno on the other side of the net, and I saw Marco Milinkovic from Argentina, and Vandro, and guys who were Olympians, best player, and I don't know, 2001 World League. They were across the net for me, and I was 17 or 18. Um, and I was like, oh, okay. Of course, I wasn't not even close to those guys, but I felt like maybe I can give professional volleyball a shot. Then after that, I played for a different junior team in a different state, and then they bumped me up to play up with the pro team of that program. So once I started spending time with pro guys, I really realized how tough the professional life of a player is. Playing pro is, man, it's a different beast. You're literally playing to pay your bills. You're playing to feed your kids. And I was 18 at a time, and I was playing with guys who were 35, who are my age now, 37, 36, 28. And then I realized how brutal it can be, and you're always one injury away from losing it all, right? And that's more like the dark side of the professional sport, right? But it's true. And I realized that. And I also realized that I was a pretty good player, but I don't think I was a player that had the level to spend 10, 15 years playing the sport, not have a professional career outside of volleyball, and make enough money to justify not being in the work field for so long. Then when I was exploring my options, I was like, hey, I can play high level volleyball, good level volleyball in the States, continue with my education because I was still in college. I did my first year of college in Brazil, and learn good English. So I was able to combine those three things in one, and that will be me coming to the States to play college. And then I sent out some emails, video, and talked to some people. And then one former teammate told me about BYU. He was an opposite, and BYU at that time was looking for a middle. So my friend referred me to BYU. BYU had a Brazilian assistant coach, Rodrigo, who brought me here to the States. Him and Rob Nielsen at the time, the two assistants. Sean Petch was the head coach at BYU at the time, but mainly Rodrigo found me with the help of Rob. They brought me, recruited me, and a couple months later, I was in Provo, Utah. Barely spoke English. It was a really tough period of my time. I was learning a lot of things at once, learning how to deal with snow, new language, going to sociology and biology classes in English, and then learning how to train within the American style of playing volleyball, which was very different than what I did in Brazil.
Fantastic, man. And I'll take the first of all, that's a really inspiring story. Um, and then I will take your last sentence and kind of try to go from there. You said it was a different experience coming to the US. So what was your first impression like in American college volleyball when you arrived to BYU, which is we're gonna touch on that a little later. It's a
Hmm.
different style of college altogether, very different from the rest of American schools. But how different was volleyball to you compared to Brazil, both on and on the court?
Yeah, I think in Brazil, especially 20 years ago, I think maybe today not so much. To be honest with you, Liron, I have not been in a Brazilian gym in 10 years now. Like watching a practice, Last time I was in the gym, I was playing. I was playing the second division in Brazil back in 2016. So I think things can change in a decade, right? Even the style of volleyball has changed within the last decade. But back then, 20 years ago, I felt like it was very result oriented, right? Like maybe in the junior and youth level, of course, not so much. You're still developing kids, but the level that I was towards the end of my time in Brazil, it was, hey, if you're getting the ball to where the ball needs to be, coaches wouldn't mess too much with your technique. And maybe because I was getting into pro volleyball and with the pros, a coach, a coach's return to investment is not really there. Like changing the technique of a 35-year-old dude is not really there, right? You are who you are at that point. So I felt like it was very result driven and not so process driven, process focused. Um, we did a lot of blocked where you just work on your hand over the net entry as a blocker, right? You have people in boxes hitting at you, and you just making that move, boom, boom, making that move, and over and over and over again. And we do like an hour and a half of blocking only, right? And then when I came to the States, and that applied for a bunch of different skills, right? Same for digging, guys on boxes and boom, 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 and you're digging, getting hammered there. Um, the 6v6 drills, we didn't have like mini games. We didn't, for example, okay, you got to win, you got to side out, you got to win 2 free balls and serve for a big point type of drill, right? Here in the States, we have games within the game to motivate, to use as incentive for teams to keep on pushing during practice. In Brazil, during my time at least, not so much. You just played every ball as hard as you could, bro. You know, play hard because it was dog eat dog, and it was the survival of the fittest. You just had to play hard all the time. Um, yeah, so that was very different for me, and especially when I got here at BYU with the influence of Carl McGowan, who influenced the volleyball, the USA volleyball for many, many decades, and even to this day. One of his philosophies was, hey, the game teaches the game. Therefore, the more you play, the better you get. So, for example, going back to what I said about blocked drills in Brazil, if you are very good at blocking the ball coming from a guy standing on a box hitting at you, you're going to be good at you're going to be good at blocking a person on a box, not blocking a real attacker hitting a real set that comes from a real pass in a setter. Does that make sense? So that for me was really different. So once I arrived here, we played a bunch in practice. We just played. And I was like, all right, when are we gonna do more technical stuff? you know? And the technical stuff came when I was here, but came in a different way, in a different manner. Because here our rosters here in the States at a time, now we got reduced to 18. But it was so large, it was so big, 22, 23, 24 guys. We had the arms and the bodies in the gym to have live attackers hitting at you, right? You have the luxury to have live servers for you to get your passing reps. In Brazil, you have 14 guys, 16 guys, and that's it, you know? Um, so yeah, and of course, we can go deeper into the fact that the facilities and the resources that we have here in the States doesn't even compare to anything in Brazil. You know, the number we have 3 courts to practice. We have um, cannons to serve balls at the guys. We have everything you can imagine. So many clubs in Brazil don't have that. So that was very different for me.
I remember I was in Cal where I met you first in Northern California, and we walked in the gym, and you're looking at me. They run those kids. You're talking about the players. They don't know that what they have, and we were in this huge arena. They don't know that this is very, very special. They take it for granted. And it so resonated with me from me being from Israel, you being from Brazil. Outside of the US, yes, you get 1 court, whatever you have, no really machinery around to kind of help you. You said 14, 16, that's at best, right? Sometimes you have 8 to
Hmm.
10 to 12. Um, so yes, I agree that the level of coaching here is elevated because you have all these facilities and all these amenities that can help you push your program forward. So so cool, man. So you finished playing in BYU. You finished your collegiate career, 3 years playing.
Yeah, 3 years playing. So, like I told you, I played one in Brazil, three here. Then I stayed at BYU just to finish my degree for a couple more semesters. And then, yeah, I used to coach in the summer, camps here and there.
Yeah.
Um, and then that led me into my first job out of college at Georgetown as an assistant
Awesome.
coach.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
you dove in right to my next question. Before you're talking about your coaching career, which is fantastic. I wanted just to touch a little bit about your professional playing career. Was this after BYU that you played in the
Yeah.
US and Brazil?
Yeah. It's funny because, man, my goal as a kid was always to, be a professional player and, uh, you know, live from just playing ball, right? It's practice in the morning, sleep, practice in the afternoon, sleep, do that again the next day. But so when I was at BYU, my last year at BYU, man, I felt like I was flying. I was feeling good. I was healthy, no pains at all. I had to deal with really, really bad knee pains, tendonitis in my first year at BYU, my last year in Brazil coming to BYU, and I found a way to get rid of them. And my shoulder was always good. I was in really good shape, understanding the game better, training better, smarter, and I felt like I reached my peak in my senior year, as you would assume, right? As you get older and stronger. But I felt like, man, if I continue playing, I could have some type of career. But I came here to get my degree, right? I came here. I was like, man, I didn't come from so far away to leave BYU without a degree. So I finished my education here. And man, once you stop playing for one semester, 2 semesters, 3 semesters now, it's hard to get back to it. So I was at peace with that. But I got that job at Georgetown. I was there for 2 seasons. And you as a foreigner, me as a foreigner, we know how things are. My visa expired. It's like, well, time to go back home. I went back home back to Florianopolis. And like I told you, Florianopolis had a history of having professional teams. By the time I went back, we had no professional teams. The team had moved somewhere else. But since it was a beautiful town, beautiful city, a lot of professional players, they bought homes, they bought beach houses. So it's a place where you had a good professional volleyball guys, a professional community, professional volleyball community there. So so I ended up start playing with former teammates, with professional players who were spending their time there during their off season. Even Andre, the lefty who won in 2004 with Brazil an Olympic gold medal, was around, and he came to a couple of practices. So those are the guys that were around, and we started practicing 2, 3 times a week. I started to get back in shape. We went to a couple of tournaments. I was doing well, and then a team from the second division invited me to play for them. So I was pretty much like for 2 years playing volleyball at a really, really good level. And at that point, I felt like I was giving everything I had, but my max, my 100% wasn't my 100% from the past anymore, if that makes sense. It's like a cell phone battery, at some point you charge it all the way up to 100, but that's like actually 80. But I felt like, man, I was like, okay, I I got to play. I got to experience that again. I got to interact with old friends from volleyball, and that was awesome. Amazing experience. We won things that we shouldn't have won, and we mostly won because we had a really, really great group. The camps were a bunch of friends playing together,
Awesome.
and yeah, so it was a great experience.
That's awesome. So you
Yeah.
mentioned that's cool. So you mentioned that like after you played, You did some summer camps at BYU and whatnot, and then that led you
Hmm.
to Georgetown for a couple of years that you were
Yeah.
coaching over there. Then you had the break going playing in Brazil.
Hmm.
So a couple of questions. One, was there a specific moment that you said after playing, I want to coach? And two, what brought you back to coaching the US after you played?
Yeah, I think coaching here in the States has always been in my back pocket because, man, it opens so many doors. You can get your education through coaching. You can have a long professional career. Whereas in other countries, it's hard to see coaches who spend, I don't know, 20 years coaching the very same team or 30 years coaching volleyball, right? That's that's not very normal, not very common outside of the United States. And when I say 20, 30, it's like coaching at this level that we're at, coaching at a level where we have professional level guys, and of course some guys who are not at that level. So there, it's a mixed bag of uh, different levels and within the same team sometimes, but it's a really good volleyball. So after I was done with that season in the second division in Brazil, I was like, man, I think volleyball can give me a lot more, coaching specifically. And I knew about, getting my master's degree paid for through coaching. So then I just started looking for grad assistant positions. And as I was looking, I found schools where the grad assistant would be the DOVO, the director of operation. That person would schedule hotels and practice time in the opponent's gyms and travel. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to actually coach and make an impact. That's where I found that in the second division, NCAA D2, that graduate assistant has a bigger impact because, okay, I cannot pay you money, but I can give you education, and they count on that assistant to be one of the main assistant coaches there and a person that they trust coaching and developing those players. So then I found Missouri Western State in St. Joseph, Missouri, and they gave me that freedom to, just to work and to be a massive part of the program. And it's funny because for me, I had a little advantage, at least on my resume. I was coming from a D1 program, right? With 2 years of experience there, now going to a D2. So for them, I stood out, amongst the other resumes that were, being looked for that position. So, yeah, that was an easy decision for me. And I came back now as a student, as a graduate student. Was for 2 years at Missouri Western. We won conference in our second year, something that we have never done before. They actually won conference again this year,
Oh,
so
cool.
that was back in 2017. Now, 2025. So yeah, it was an awesome experience for me, and in just coaching at a different level, at the D2 level, you get to be more creative with the resources you have. At the D2 level, you're not volleyball, volleyball, volleyball all the time. There's more room for, just social interaction with players, with the other coaches. Uh, it's still very competitive. So it was a great experience for me.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Just for the younger coaches who are listening or are international, maybe from Brazil or elsewhere, there is an opportunity and options to be a graduate assistant. So if you have a bachelor's degree from your home, like your hometown country, you can apply and be a graduate assistant, do like a master's degree while you're coaching, and essentially that pays for your degree. So you can definitely pursue that option. So yeah, after Missouri, you coach at SMC and then Cal. This is a question that I hear all the time because I coach the men's at Santa Monica and
Hmm.
women's now at Alabama State, and now with George Mason back to men's again. But um, the question that I hear the most: what are the major differences between coaching men's programs and women's programs? And for you specifically, if you adapt yourself as a coach to each of those programs.
Yeah, I think the game, at the end of the day, the game is the same. Sometimes I joke with my players when I tell them, "Hey guys, bump set spike." What I mean by that, it comes down to the basic things. And on both sides, when men's and women's, it comes down to who can serve and pass at a high level, right? Because then everything else comes. But I think with the women's game, the girls are more technical at a younger age. If you look at a 14, 15-year-old girl, generally speaking, I think they're a lot more technical. I also think that here in the United States, the boys, because volleyball is not a top sport, like boys try to play football, they try to play basketball, try to play baseball. Sometimes they try a bunch of other sports before finding volleyball. So I feel like they are not as technical at a younger age, and sometimes that reflects at the college level. I think the girls are more, they have more finesse, they're a little more polished by the time they get to college. So that it's fun to work with players like that, right? They they're already more developed in that sense. On the flip side of that, with the guys, I think sometimes yes, they're not more as polished at a younger age, but they use their physicality to make up for that, right? Like, hey, they jump high, hit hard, doesn't look great, technique can improve, but the power of their game makes up for some technical flaws. So I think, and they're different in that sense. I think with the guys, um, I am tougher with them, not because I cannot be tough with the girls, but the way I approach the girls was more like trying to understand what they're going through in their head, and have more of a conversation instead of, hey, boom, 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 you need to do this, blah, blah, blah. Be more straightforward. Um, the more I got to know the girls and the more they trusted me, the more direct I could be with them and they would be okay with it. Right? They just needed to know that I cared and that I was there for them on and off the court. And with the guys, I'm just more straightforward from the start. Again, I don't think the girls are not as tough with the guys. Like many girls are way tougher than the guys. But it's just for me, that's the difference in approach as a coach who's been on both sides of the game. Um, I enjoy the physicality of the men's game, but at the same time, I enjoy the technicality of the girls' game. I do think that the women's game at the highest levels are getting more and more similar to the men's because the
I
girls
agree.
are not only technical, they're also physical at that point. And if you look at national teams, Turkish, Italian, Brazilian, even the Russians were when they were playing international competitions, the girls are just big and strong and technical and scoring out of the back row with big opposites, setting back row attackers in system because the hitting numbers backed up the decision to set them out of the back row in certain situations. So I think they're, just they're the same game, but just different style.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed both equally. Um, but for me, it's fun to be back here with BYU with the program that I was a part of.
I love that you always finish and give me a lead for my next question. That's fantastic. That makes my job way easier. So you're coming a full circle. You played for BYU. There is like a unit pride when you're part of a program, whether as a coach or a player. You kind of want this program to keep succeeding. But you played at BYU, and now you're coaching the same program.
Yeah.
So, like, how does it make you feel coaching at your alma mater?
Man, first, it's very, very special because the number of men's programs is so little that having a former player come coach at that program is not common, right? And here at BYU, for many years, we try to keep it that way, having former players coaching at BYU. Um, First, I feel lucky to be back here and I feel blessed to be here. And I feel that I have the responsibility to help Sean and Devin and all the other guys that came before us to elevate the program to where we want it to be. We've won national championships in the past. It's been some 2 decades now that we haven't won a national championship, even though we've been to many national championship games. Um, most recently in 2001 against Hawaii. But um, I feel I feel I feel very lucky to be here because not every man men's volleyball program, they have the resources that we do, right? And we know, I don't know if um, your audience is aware of this, but on the women's side, programs, many programs are really well funded with a ton of resources. On the men's side, not so much. Only a few do, and BYU is one of them. So there's a reason why I came back Riley Run. I was on the path to keep on moving up on the girls' side, but then I decided to come to BYU first because it's a place I love. It's my program. I played here. I want to, like I said, help elevate this program, and they have all the resources you can imagine for us to be great. So there's not a whole lot that a coach can ask, right? And besides the fact that I love the state of Utah, for me and my family, our quality of life here is great. Um, but I feel lucky to be here.
That's cool. And I feel that it's
Yeah.
like a common theme with international coaches, the loyalty piece, right? We want to stay where we are. We want to just give back to the programs that accepted us in a sense, like gave us the chance, so we want to always give back. Um Not that American coaches don't. I'm just I think it's a very like well shared common thing within all international coaches I know.
Hmm.
Um and before, before going to BYU or at BYU or other programs, can you share like what's the biggest, like a big challenge as an international coach trying to coach in the US? Do you have any moment that you struggled?
I think for me, one of my biggest challenges, I don't think there's, man, like during COVID, I struggled because of COVID and what happened during COVID, but, and that's probably slightly off topic. But for me, sort of struggle, but me trying to find ways to communicate effectively with my players in a way that they would understand and would make sense. I always, man, I listen to Karch, and Karch talks so well.
Yep.
You see Karch coaching, you see Karch on the sidelines, you see him at convention, giving talks. He talks so well.
Hmm.
And me as a coach trying to pass on the information that I know to my players in a second language, it can always be challenging, right? Um, I think the better I get communicating and sharing my knowledge, the better coach I will become. So I think that's a constant challenge for me. Not that I struggle necessarily, but I always try to be better at that. Like, how can I communicate with that player in a way that I'm passing exactly what I want them to do, and they can absorb that information. Sometimes this, you're a coach and you talk with the player this way, they won't get it. You talk to player in the same way, they will get it. So you have to create different ways to pass on the same information at times, and the vocabulary, the way you talk, the connection. Um, that's something you have to figure out to be efficient as a coach, right? We see a lot of coaches, especially internationally, where they are very dry and straight to the point, just because like they're speaking in their second, sometimes third language. And I think just the better you are communicating, um, the better coach you're going to be. So I think for me, that's a big piece of what I do, and something I always strive to be better at.
Fantastic. And with that being said, uh, do you have a story or that you felt misunderstood, underestimated, not just because of language, but maybe culture differences or even generation differences?
Yeah, I feel like when I was first looking for a job, coaching job out of college, I felt like even though I had some connections, um, I was looking at other people getting hired straight out of college and going to big programs already, going to great places. And man, until Georgetown gave me a shot, nobody would give me a shot. I used to coach camps during summer, but that was about it. And then I would see people getting jobs here and there. I was like, man, why am I not being looked at that way? Um, but I eventually, I came across Georgetown, and that was my only opportunity that summer. And I just grabbed that opportunity and went with it, right? Like literally across the country. So I think that was a little bit of a struggle. Um, just wondering why people who I thought like, oh, they're good coaches, as good as me, and they're getting great opportunities. What am I doing wrong here? They're not getting the same opportunities. Not that I was jealous or anything, but I was just wondering, like, what can I do better? Should I interview better? Should I expose myself more at conventions or sign up to volunteer somewhere? And that's big time here in the States, right, Leron? That's volunteering,
Of course.
working for free, and making connections is massive. And I think a lot of international coaches don't understand the value of it. They're like, "Oh man, I'm kind of being demoted for being a volunteer." No, dude, you're a volunteer in Nebraska. You're a volunteer at Texas. You're shagging balls. You're just listening in, just watching practice. And yes, you're not gonna get paid for that season, but the connection you're making is gonna help you get a massive jump start to where you want to be. So maybe that was it. I wasn't understanding at the time, but I feel like once I got into coaching, I was able to move up and go coach what I wanted to go. Like St. Mary's, I really want to coach for Rob Brownie, who was heavily involved with USA volleyball, and he's a guy that had been to 2 or 3 Olympic games with the USA national team. So I got to, it's funny with Rob, for example. I was coaching a camp with him. He was coaching that camp. I was just helping out. And at a dinner one night, I made sure to sit right by him. There was a long dinner table full of coaches, right? And all great coaches who are friends to this day. But I made sure to sit right by Rob. And I was talking to Rob about his program, yada, yada. And it's like, Otavio, what's next for you? It's like, Rob, I'm looking for a job. I'm graduating from my master's degree and I'm looking for a job to, work at a program where I can learn a ton from the head coach and contribute at the same time. Actually, oh man, that's too bad because I just hired this guy. We don't have any openings here. And literally, probably like 2 months later, he's like, "Hey, Otavio, the guy that I hired took on a different opportunity somewhere else. We have an opening. You want to come interview?" And boom, and then it happened. So right place, right time. But at the same time, I took the opportunity that night at dinner just to sit by the guy I wanted to work for, and I'm glad everything lined up and I got to go to St. Mary's.
I love this story, man. I have a few things to say about everything you just said.
Mhm.
First, for the people who listen, and just for myself, it's a funny anecdote. When I moved to the U.S. in 2019, I reached out again to men's volleyball coaches, and I got to sit with David Hunt when he was the
David,
head
he's
coach
great.
at Pepperdine. I sat in his office. That's when he hired Paul. I forget his last name, but he's going to be on this podcast. He's an
Mhm.
Australian coach. Um, and he told me in the office, "Look, I don't have a full-time position, but I have a volunteer position for you." And I had the same thing going through my mind. I'm new. I need something to like provide to myself, to my girlfriend, my wife, girlfriend back then, and kind of need to build something. So I thought it's like I couldn't even think of the possibility of volunteering. But now I understand the importance of that. And if someone is listening and you have this opportunity, go ahead, take that opportunity because it will open many, many doors. Um, I also want to tell you something. I don't think I've ever told you this, but Otavio mentioned that no one gave an opportunity until Georgetown. All it takes is one at the end of the day. But the way to get to that one is so frustrating at times for us internationals, maybe even probably even for Americans, but generally speaking, so frustrating. Um, and for me, I was on that route, and Otavio, you helped me a lot. I'm a kind of person that will call and ask for help, and Otavio was there helping me with kind of putting together scouting reports, text me, giving me calls if something is open, kind of brainstorm with me. So you're one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast. I just wanted to let you know because
Thank
if
you, man.
someone is
Appreciate it.
listening and we're not knowing him personally, you can listen, tune in, and hopefully, get some inspiration from us international folks. Um, so yeah, keep working, keep grinding, and keep building your connections that will help you out. And back to you, Otavio.
Hmm.
Um, so you're here, you're coaching for a while. Was there any time in the last few years here in the US that you thought about, what, screw this. I'm going back to
Oh yeah.
Brazil, my comfort zone.
Not necessarily going back to Brazil, Liron. I love this country, man. I love living here in the States. I don't see myself living anywhere else. But I did after my first season at St. Mary's, and man, we my first year at St. Mary's, we took the team to the tournament, right? To the national tournament, and that's something that had not happened in many, many years at St. Mary's. I don't really remember, probably 8, maybe 10 years. And we had an awesome group of girls, a group of girls that peaked all together at the right time in 2018. But after that season, um, it's funny because we had a great season, but after that season, like, man, am I really making that much of an impact? Like, what am I doing here? Maybe it's because I was an assistant, and maybe, hey, maybe if I want to make a bigger impact, I should be a head coach somewhere else. Um, but to be honest, I felt like I questioned why I was coaching and if I was really, really helping, which I really was. Like looking back, I really was at the time, right? And man, let me tell you this. So that was in 18. In 2009, then we had the 19 season, and then in 18, sorry, and then in 20, COVID hit, right? And then it was time for me to renew my contract at St. Mary's. They had a hiring freeze, so they couldn't renew my contract. My contract was supposed to be renewed in April of that year, and COVID happened in March.
Well,
So Rob said, "Hey, can you just stick around and get through this?" At the time, we didn't know how long the hiring freeze was going to last. So I was around for 2, 3, 4 months, maybe more until, yeah, September, I think, from April to September. And at some points, like, Rob, sorry, but I cannot. At that time, like, I could not be volunteering anymore, because
there is a
I
limit,
really
everyone. There is
there
a
was a
limit.
yeah, of course, there's a limit. The problem was, Leron, I was not planning on volunteering. So sometimes we just talked about volunteering. If people think of, yeah, I don't need the money, I can work for free. No, hold on. You with 1 or 2 years in advance, you save up, right? You plan, hey, I'm gonna be volunteering, working for free there, but I'm gonna be coaching volleyball at a local club. I'm gonna be doing this, and that, right? So it's not like you're not making money at all, but for that to happen smoothly, you got to plan ahead. At that time, I was not planning on it. So I was like, Rob, dude, sorry, but I cannot be around anymore. I have to work. So I was unemployed for a period of time, packing groceries at a local grocery store. And right, I went from coaching college, being in that awesome environment where people are learning, where people are developing themselves, where guiding young adults to figure out where they want to go in life, which is, I think it's awesome, which is a very important time of their lives. And you're there as someone who can help them to packing groceries. Now that that's not a noble thing to do, but it's not something that was fulfilling for me, of course. And then I truly realized how awesome it is to be in the collegiate environment, coaching the sport you love, you know? So that was the big struggle in my career. It's not necessarily with the volleyball part, but coaching volleyball, not coaching volleyball. That then it's crazy because during that time, Morena, my wife, was pregnant of Julia. I had no job, packing groceries from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning, taking some crazy shifts. And then the assistant coach position at Cal opened up. And man, I applied for that position like crazy because for me, the program itself, it was at the time a Power Five conference program in the Pac-12. It would be a step up in my career, and it was right there, so I didn't have to move at all, right? And So everything would align perfectly. So I had to get that job. So man, the pressure I had to get that job was insane.
Wow.
Insane, insane, insane. I was going from unemployed with a pregnant wife at home to coaching at a Power Five conference team with good resources. Luckily, I got the job and then just moved on with my career. Then I was at Cal, and then I was
Amazing.
there for for 3 seasons. But man, like it's funny because people, especially friends back home and other people, they see things on Instagram and social media and think the ride is very smooth, right? Because
Yep. See the
they
good stuff.
base right, they only see the highlights of your life, but it was a scary moment of my life, like not knowing what was gonna happen, there's uncertainty, and I literally went from hell to heaven really fast when I got hired, and then I was able to be a Cal for the next 3 seasons.
Wow, that's a crazy story, man. I didn't know
Yeah,
that about it. I'm sorry you
yeah,
had to go through this, but I'm happy it's in the past. And
yeah.
man, you did some great stuff since then, and you're gonna still do great stuff. I'm sure of it. So that's a story, that's for sure.
Yeah.
um, well, all right. Well, with a very sharp transition from there.
Mhm.
Um, Now, a lot of Brazilian coaches hopefully are listening. Is there anything that you didn't know coaching here in the US, other than the things we mentioned, that you would say to the young coach who's interested coming in the US or already here? Um, there are a lot, by the way, there are a lot of Brazilian coaches
Yes.
in
Lots of
D1 and
Brazilian coach.
all different divisions. Is there anything that you think that it's necessary to know before coming here?
Yeah, I think,
I'm sorry, Otavio.
the
Let me just cut you right here.
yeah,
Also,
that's
I
fine.
want to add, especially if they didn't play in college here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. I think that's a very, very important, thing to point out. I think understanding, let's say let's just talk about college. Okay, Leron. Um, club club's a different story, but with college, especially if they didn't play here, they have to understand what the the student athletes' lives are like, because we're coaching young men and women, and we want to push them to almost their limits, right? To make them the best volleyball players they can be. However, those kids, they're also studying to be engineers. They're studying to be doctors and dentists and lawyers as they're playing really, really good volleyball.
Yep.
Right? So look at that. They have 2 lives, and understanding what their load in a classroom is, and of course, what their load on the court is massive. It's really important, right? So you gotta talk to people. You gotta ask questions. You gotta know how their lives are like. Otherwise, you're gonna demand them to perform like professional athletes, but their load is much bigger than a professional athlete, right? I'm talking about their load off the court. They have exams, and they, at the stage of their life, they break up with girlfriends and boyfriends, and someone from their family passes away, and they're homesick. They've never been away from home before. Or a young player like me back in the day, like they had never seen snow before in their lives, and
Mm,
now they're sick all the
straight to
time
Utah.
because, yeah, they don't know me. Man, for me, I didn't had proper clothes to wear when I was walking outside, right? Um,
Can get very cold in Utah.
yeah. So I think understanding what they are going through is massive. It's key. That's why maybe sometimes programs are hesitant to hire an international coach right away just because they don't have that experience. They don't know exactly what the players are going through, or they don't know how the collegiate system works. Recruiting, for example,
Mhm.
recruiting is a different beast by itself.
Mhm.
It's a massive part of what we do. So until they understand those aspects of coaching in college, then they'll become better coaches. Because I think when it comes to actually coaching the skills, the style can be different. But man, there's so many good coaches outside of the states,
Yeah,
who already contribute to our volleyball here. And it's just a matter of understanding the whole picture instead of a fraction of what we do, right? So I think that's a big piece of the equation.
I love it. Yeah, and
Mhm.
it makes sense now that you're saying it that in order to relate, a lot of programs are kind of hesitant to bring in people that they think might not be able to relate. But that's definitely a good point. And with that being said, you mentioned there are a lot of great coaches outside the U.S.
Mm.
What do you think? And I'm going to take you to Brazil. Is there, excuse me, is there anything Brazilian volleyball culture can teach the US culture or even vice versa?
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. Here in the States, especially when I first came, I realized how by the book volleyball is, right? Like every player has a job description, and coaches, for the most part, I'm generalizing here, they try to make those players understand and perform their job responsibilities as well as they can. I think Brazilian volleyball is a little more fluid outside of the box, not as stiff when it comes to those responsibilities, not as data driven. It's more like feel driven.
Hmm.
I remember talking to coaches in Brazil back when I was a player. They didn't gather a lot of numbers to decide who the starters were going to be. It was like, yeah, like they look like they're better players. That group of six, they're going to start. These are my backup guys, and we'll see how we go from there. And here in the United States, it's so data driven, and the just the way we collect data here is insane. Even this day, like with AI, now we don't have to have someone breaking down games. Like
Yep.
the machine does that for you and collects those numbers. So that to me, that's very, very different. And I do think in Brazil, we are, at least in Brazil, we are we are more data driven nowadays, especially at the highest levels. But it wasn't like that 20, 25 years ago. Um, I also think, Louis, that we are just now in Brazil understanding that we need to be better at sharing information, sharing knowledge.
Hmm.
Here in the States, you see Karch at conventions, you see John Spraw, you see big time names, you see Marv Dunphy, and you see a lot of people coaching clinics, coaching camps, interacting with club level kids at conventions, releasing books, releasing back in the day DVDs or any type of media to say, hey, this is how we do things in our gym. This is why I like to do things in that way. This is why I don't like doing things in this other way. The information shared here is absurdly greater than in any other country. So much so that when you go to a coaches convention at the end of the women's season in December, you see so many foreigners coming from outside of the states just to listen to what people have to say and learn more, which is awesome.
Yep.
I think just now in Brazil, we're starting to understand that. You see camps with professional players coaching and coaches coaching. Um, yes, here in the States, we have a system for that. And we have a system that makes sense financially, right? You have coaches who are willing to pay for their own development. So they go to clinics, they pay for it, see players doing the same, parents doing the same. I understand that part. But man, I do think like we need to have big, especially big time names in Brazil, publishing books, sharing their stories.
Hmm.
Not only books about stories. I've read Bernardo's, uh, the Brazilian national team coach, book about his experiences. But how about the way he teaches the game? I would like to know more about that,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's where we lack right now. Um, Maybe in other countries it's similar, maybe not, but if other countries start doing that, sharing their information, making it more accessible, I think that would just help grow the game everywhere. Everywhere.
That's a really good point. Yeah, and maybe
Yeah.
you can be a pioneer, Otavio, with your
Yeah.
knowledge and everything in
I'm
Portuguese.
I'm too humble. I feel like I don't have a whole lot to share. But I probably maybe I do have something to share, but I'll leave it to the big dogs.
I love it. Okay, I want to move to the last part of this
Yeah.
this podcast episode. What are you hoping that your athletes at BYU and the athletes in other programs before that will remember from you?
Man, I think they remember me as a person that tried to get them to the best version of themselves during their time around our program, like someone who guided them towards the best version of that what they could have been while they're here. Because I felt like that, like I told you, I peaked at my senior season, and I felt like the coaches at the time helped me do that. Um, and I just hope to do the same, try to get the most out of this experience, try to make them realize how special it is. Because sometimes we don't, right? We just immersed in this. Here at BYU, we get 5,000 people at our games, and not very many places are like that. So
Mhm.
I tell them all the time, like parents, they get their kids ready to go to volleyball game. They pack everything and come, and it's an event, right? And so we cannot take that for granted. We cannot get used to that. We always have to acknowledge that we're just lucky to be in that environment and lucky to have so many supporters. So yeah, just a person that help them realize things and see things that go beyond volleyball.
Beautiful. Okay, and then what's next for you, Otavio? What's your dream, your next goal, anything that you put your
Yeah, I've been an assistant coach for a long time now, and to be honest with you, Liran, I actually enjoy being an assistant. You can be a fun version of yourself as an assistant, right? Yeah, maybe hey, financially you're not making as much money, but for me, um, being an assistant who has a voice in my program is big time. It's really important, and I think I get that here at BYU. I get to work with Devin Young, who was a teammate of mine back in the day, and Aubrey Rushing is our director of ops, and she was a friend. We used to coach camps together 10, 15 years ago. And Sean Olmstead, who's our head coach, he's a guy I always looked up to. And I know him for many, many years since my time here as a player. He was the coach of the year in 2014, I want to say, on the women's side, and very experienced guy who give us room to be ourselves as coaches and to try things, to give opinions and things like that. Of course, at the end of the day, he's the one making the final call, final decisions. But I am where I want to be right now in my career, working at a program where I feel valued and where people listen to me, a program where we are competitive, and a program where we're supported. Thinking long term, I see myself staying here for many more years, to be honest with you. Um, but eventually, yeah, probably being a head coach somewhere. Most likely women's side. I feel there's just more opportunities there.
Mhm.
Um, but I enjoy where I'm at right now. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. So I love where I am.
I love it. I have no
Yeah.
doubt that if you'll get an opportunity, you would like it, you will get the opportunity. Um, and I would like to finish with a speed run questions. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and you can answer with one word, two words, whatever you feel, whatever feels right. Ready for
Okay.
this?
Yeah.
Okay. What's a better professional league in the U.S. or Brazil?
U.S.
Can a middle blocker lead to championships?
No.
Easiest way to annoy you in practice?
Yes. Don't go for balls.
Don't go for
No,
balls.
don't try hard.
Makes sense. Toughest opponent, whether a player or a team, you faced.
Man, most recently, GCU, Grand Canyon, they just cut their program.
Hmm.
But man, they had such a good team in the years I got to coach against them. And they're good guys. They're good dudes, but they were annoying to play against. They acted like a bunch of punks across the net, but man, they're good.
Awesome.
And I think that these my first 3 seasons at the BYU, we played them like 6 times. I only got to beat them once as an assistant coach here. So yeah,
One word players use to describe you.
fun.
Favorite English slang.
Oh man, uh, oh, Leron, now you caught me off
I
guard.
put you on the spot. I know.
Yeah,
We can pass and
slang.
come back to that.
K.
All right. The hardest English word to pronounce.
Man, I had a problem when I first learned English saying world, Earl, Carl. I think those were tough for me, but nowadays they're fine.
All right. Your accent, is it an advantage or an obstacle?
Yeah, I think it depends on where you are. People value that or not, but I think it's a good thing, especially in the world I live in, volleyball world. Um, Brazilian volleyball is really, considered one of the best in the world. So um, when you say, "Hey, I coach volleyball, I'm from Brazil," and if they know volleyball, they know you come from a country where volleyball is really traditional. So they end up valuing your Brazilian background. So I think it's a good thing.
Awesome. What's the worst part of American volleyball culture?
Man, that's a good question. I think volleyball it's very industrialized with the club system, the pay to play.
Mm-hmm.
I think kind of that takes the fun for the kids at times. I think parents are a massive part of what we do at the club level, even at the college level. But I think there's a limit to what they can influence, and I think some parents sometimes they go beyond that line. Um, but I understand at the same time that the system wouldn't work without them financing, paying for their kids to play the sport. So there's a fine line there, So as long as we always stay in our lanes and don't cross that line, I think it should work for everyone.
Awesome. Yeah. And just a quick comment on that. I have an episode with Sarah Stratton. She works with the mental side of the game. She represented Australia in Sydney 2000 in the
Oh, cool.
Olympics. And we're talking a lot about parents' influence and money influence and so on and so forth. Look it up. It's really cool to. It's a really cool episode. So listen to that. Last two questions for you, Otavio. If
Hmm.
you weren't a coach, what would you be?
Man, I got a degree in broadcast journalism here at BYU. Maybe I'll be working on TV or in front of behind the camera. I don't know, sports broadcasting, something like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And if you had an opportunity, who would you represent, Brazil or the United States?
Man, I would love to represent either country, but I think because of my coaching style, I learned how to coach here in the States. I never coached in Brazil. I think it will be a better fit for the American team.
Okay, awesome. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
All right, man. Otavio, thank you very much for this interview podcast episode. It was fantastic. I thank you for opening up and share your story, and I hope many coaches, young coaches, and players will listen to it, whether it's Brazil, here in the U.S., anywhere in the world, and kind of get inspired from you because you have a fantastic career, starting from the bottom and building up. With some obstacles along the way, and you
Yeah.
really inspired me. So thank you for that. Thank you for being a good friend. Um, is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah. Leron, that's an awesome initiative by you, man. We talked about sharing knowledge, right? And you found a niche that I feel like it wasn't touched before. Like just international coaches, what can you share about your experience, right? How did you get there? How do you maintain yourself here? Right? And there's so many things we can develop from that. So I think this podcast can really develop and be a resource for international coaches who want to come here in the States or want to learn more and apply the things they're learning in their own country. Whatever the reason is, I think it's a great resource.
I appreciate that. And yes, we're starting with volleyball because this is my world, but I'm going to open it for other sports, and so everyone can enjoy this podcast. And I appreciate your words, and hope to see you soon, hopefully in Utah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
very
the
much. Thank you,
opportunity.
Otavio.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening for another episode of International Coaches Club. Today it was Otavio Souza, the men's volleyball assistant at BYU. It was an incredible podcast. I really enjoyed it. What an inspiration story from Otavio. He's one of those coaches who will give everything, and he's a grinder, and it shows because he coached in many places in the US, played in the US, and shared a lot of information. He came up with a couple of suggestions that I like, mainly sharing our experiences as international coaches. And I love that. And we'll try to do that more here in the podcast. Please listen to other episodes of International Coaches Club. Listen on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, any platform that you use. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and like and share. And I look forward to another episode of International Coaches Club next week.